well as Sergeant Taylor Sullivan. Just tragic situations for both, and both were responding in one way or another to domestic violence, domestic disturbance situation. And I will say that the City Hall again will be illuminated in blue. The bridges on 59 will be illuminated in blue tonight in honor of, in this case, both of these sergeants. And we do want to remember both of them. They're both heroes. Want to remember their families, their loved ones, their friends, and then the respective departments. The Houston Police Department, all of the 5,300 police officers, and then of course the NASA Bay Police Department, and then all of law enforcement as well. So this is one of those painful moments, and but it's also time for the city of Houston to pull together like never before, and be very supportive of these families. Having said that, I'll take whatever questions.
Below guidelines that came out, I guess initial thoughts on them. How do you see them impacting the city?
Which one?
The one's basically allocating, I think it's $100 million per project, one at a time.
Mitigation funds.
4.3
billion in mitigation funds.
Is that what we're
Yes,
Okay, for the hearing tonight. My hope is that a proportional amount of those dollars will be spent in the Houston-Harris County, in the Harvey impacted areas. Similar to the division that took place on the housing repair and reconstruction dollars. That's my hope. These are $4.3 billion coming for HUD for infrastructure purposes. But potentially these dollars could be spent throughout the entire state of Texas. But that's not the intent. The intent, and I think in the minds of most folks, is to strengthen the areas that were impacted specifically by Harvey. And so my hope is that a proportional amount of those dollars will be spent in the Harvey impacted area. That is what I will be emphasizing this evening at the hearing. And if you apply that sort of formula, about half of that 4.3 billion should be allocated to Houston-Harris County.
And so just as something that's, it's the most fair and equitable way of doing this, I mean, do you agree with that? Do you have,
it should, on the areas that were impacted by Harvey. I think if you ask people about the 4.3 billion being awarded, I think they are thinking that these dollars intended for infrastructure to improve the infrastructure in the Harvey impacted region. I think people will be hard pressed to say that these dollars should be spent, for example, in the Panhandle of Texas or in West Texas, so to speak. In their minds, 100% of these dollars should be spent in the Harvey impacted region. And if you apply the same formula as was applied to the housing repair and reconstruction dollars, that means that roughly half of that 4.3 should be spent in Houston-Harris County. So that's my hope. That's what a position that Houston has taken, and what Harris County has taken. That's the main thing. If these dollars be spent on infrastructure needs in the Harvey impacted region, and half of those dollars should be spent in Houston-Harris County.
Acevedo expressed his concerns about the bulletproof vest. Now they're testing it.
Right.
Not only the bulletproof vest, but the bullets that this suspect used.
Right.
If they were designed to go through the bulletproof vest. But my question is the city investing in HPD equipment, I believe, for the next 5 years? And if so, is there any bulletproof vests involved in that investment?
Well, equipment for law enforcement, and specifically for HPD as well as HFD. So the answer to that question is yes. With respect to whether or not the bullets as it relates to Sergeant Brewster penetrated the vest, based on the preliminary reports that I've gotten, the vest did hold up based on the preliminary report, but the ballistic testing is still ongoing. But based on the preliminary reports that I have received and the testing of the vest, the bullets did not penetrate the vest. It's what I but the testing is ongoing.
What are your concerns on this? Chief of Police is concerned about, the job that the best did that night. You're concerned about maybe not doing the work that it was supposed to do?
We want to make sure that they as intended. And so I think there were some concerns initially when there were reports that the bullet may have penetrated the vest. But again, so you want the equipment to operate, safety equipment, and you want law enforcement officers to be able to rely on the safety equipment. That's very, very important because that's a part of keeping them safe and making sure that they return safely back to their homes. And so if there's any equipment that's not functioning properly, we want to know that. And the people who are manufacturing this equipment and selling this equipment, they need to know that. But again, based on the preliminary reports that we have received, we believe that the vest functioned properly, but the test is ongoing. And we want to make sure that we are done with it.
And during these days, Chief Acevedo has been criticism of senators, Republican senators. Now they're fighting back, criticizing Chief Acevedo on the comments regarding the Women's Act. And not only that, but Chief Acevedo has been criticized by Republican or conservative activists on it. Do you support Chief Acevedo on that?
In a context that I think is more conducive and more productive for this whole discussion. Number one, Sergeant Chris Brewster is not here, and he was responding to a domestic acts of domestic violence. He was responding to that call, and as a result of him showing up to bring peace to that situation, he was fatally shot. He was shot about 6 times, so he was fatally shot. And just the week before that incident, we did have a press conference at the Houston Area Women's Center where we were discussing the Violence Against Women's Act, warning that it has passed the House and now in the Senate, and was asking for it to be passed because there are two situations that are most dangerous for law enforcement, especially for the Houston Police Department, and that's when it's gang-related crimes, and the second is responding to domestic violence situations. In fact, about 40% of 40% of the cases in which police officers, law enforcement officers, are either hurt or killed, they are responding to calls pertaining to domestic violence. And so, it is important for the Violence Against Domestic Acts, Women's Act, the Violence Against Women's Act to pass, okay? But it's not a partisan issue, okay? Domestic violence against women or men, whomever may be, is not partisan. You have people who are Republican who are victims. You have people who are Democrats who are victims. You have people who are independents. It is not based on ethnicity or social economic status. People across the board are victims of domestic violence. And so it is not a partisan issue, and neither should it be relegated to a partisan issue, because that minimizes what we are talking about. Domestic violence is real, and not only are women, and more so than not, women are the victims of that, and their children, and in some cases, men. And what we found in the city of Houston is that now a police officer, Sergeant Chris Brewster, is now dead, responding to a domestic violence situation. So it is important to the country, to society as a whole, for the Congress to pass the Violence Against Women's Act, okay? It's just important. And I don't want to speak in terms of Democrats, Republicans, because that's not what is important here. It is important for those of us who are in positions of public trust that we act on behalf of everybody within our country to put forth and move forward legislation that will make people to a domestic violence situation to issue a warrant. And she now is dead as well in the Houston region. So this is a very serious issue. I don't want to get into I don't want to make it partisan, and neither should it be partisan. The reality that we can create a more safer and healthier society. And I think their families would appreciate it. Law enforcement community as a whole would appreciate it. And then many, many people who find themselves in a bad domestic situation, whether they're the spouses or the boyfriend or the girlfriend, they would appreciate it as well. Violence, whether you are technically married or whether you're in a relationship with someone. And a lot of people are in a relationship with someone. Domestic violence doesn't change because you may not have a ring on your finger, okay? If you are in a relationship with someone, whether it is husband and wife, or husband and husband, wife and wife, or whether or not it's boyfriend or girlfriend, okay, whatever it may be, domestic violence is domestic violence. It is what it is. So again, and if you're in that domestic violence situation, if someone is beating you upside the head or engaged in mental or psychological abuse, it's abuse. Well, and it's beyond that. It's violence against that person. And in many cases, it doesn't just stop with that person. It involves family members as well. So it's not defined based on whether or not we're talking about a spousal situation or whether we're talking about a girlfriend-boyfriend situation. It's about relationships. And there are some relationships that are just bad and can have horrible outcomes. And there are some relationships where what is occurring within those relationships spill over and impact other people, like Sergeant Chris Brewster. Okay? So, again, yes, I was a legislator for 27 years. And what I've discovered is that you don't stop doing the right thing because you start focusing on other things that really do not matter. What is important is for this legislation to get passed, and it should pass.